66% of Gen Z is living paycheck to paycheck, which is 2/3 of an entire generation. And they have more access to information, opportunity, and side hustles than ever before, and they're still broke. Not because they're dumb, not because they're lazy, but because of habits. Money habits that seem small, maybe even normal, but they add up over time. And they keep people stuck, stressed, and broke. So today we're gonna break down the 10 money habits that are quietly ruining people's finances and what you should do instead. So we've all done it. That outfit with the giant logo, that leased car that you kind of regret, or that overpriced dinner just to post it on your Instagram story. The problem isn't spending money, it's why you're spending the money. When you spend to look rich instead of actually becoming rich, you lose the game before it even starts. And that's exactly why buy now, pay later has exploded. Globally, over 360 million people use buy now, pay later, and that number is projected to hit 900 million by 2027. In the US alone, over 86 million people use buy now, pay later in 2024, and that's expected to grow to 91 million in the next year. So what does that tell you? People aren't just buying things they can't afford, they're financing them with zero intention of paying now. The dopamine hit is immediate. The debt shows up later. It's really emotional spending disguised as convenience. Take a look at Warren Buffett. He's worth over $160 billion and he still drives a 2014 Cadillac XTS. Not even a new one. And he didn't even buy it himself. His daughter, Susie, picked it out after convincing him to upgrade from his 2006 Cadillac, which only had 19,000 miles on it. So if one of the richest men alive doesn't feel the need to flex, then why should we? And look, it's a mindset. You start buying things to impress people who aren't paying your bills, and now you're financing your ego instead of your future. And speaking of financing, let's just go ahead and talk about the most dangerous kind, which is credit card debt. Credit cards aren't evil, but carrying a balance, well, that's where the damage really ultimately happens. US credit card debt has soared to over $1.17 trillion, and the average borrower owes $6,380, and the average household with revolving balances carries almost $10,900. More than 1 in 5 Americans, which is about 22%, pay only the minimum each month. And 11.1% of credit card accounts are minimum pay only, and that number is only going up. So if you're cutting corners with the minimum payment, you're not using credit. Credit is using you. With APRs now hovering around 21 to 23%, that $1,000 balance could take 20 years to pay off and cost you 2 to 3 times more in the end. This is how debt compounds against you. You're borrowing from your future self and you're charging them interest for the privilege. But credit card debt doesn't always come from big purchases. Sometimes it comes from emotional ones. And I get it. You had a bad day. You're bored. You feel like you deserve maybe a little treat. So what happens? You order food delivery. You buy sneakers. You tap add to cart on the app and you check out with one click using Apple Pay at midnight while you're laying in your bed. Welcome to emotional spending, retail therapy on credit. 63% of Americans say their emotions influence their spending, and 74% of those say it leads to overspending. 44% say it hurt their financial well-being, and 39% have gone into debt because of it. And over 70% feel guilt or buyer's remorse after the fact. Top triggers are stress, excitement, and happiness. And buy now, pay later makes it worse. Over half of emotional spenders say it's led to more impulse buying, especially in Gen Z and millennials. Retail therapy might help your mood for a minute, but the bill brings regret every single time. And when emotional spending becomes routine, debt starts to feel normal, which leads to the next trap, thinking that debt is, well, normal. In America, debt is almost expected. Car payments, student loans, credit cards, and now people financing groceries. A 2025 CNBC survey showed that nearly 1 in 4 Americans who use buy now, pay later services did so for groceries, which is up 14% the year prior, and even worse, 41% of those users missed a payment in the last 12 months. So let that sink in. We're normalizing borrowing money just to eat. Debt might be common, but that doesn't make it normal, and it doesn't make it safe, and it definitely doesn't make it smart. Yes, debt can be a tool, but when it's used to buy things that don't grow in value, it ultimately becomes a trap. Rich people use debt to invest. Broke people use debt to survive. If debt feels like just part of life, you've already lost control. And if you're not paying attention to the smaller leaks in your finances, you're probably getting crushed by the next one. According to CNET's 2025 subscription survey, the average American spends around $90 a month on subscriptions, which is over $1,000 a year. Roughly $200 of that is wasted on services that people no longer use. And 63% of Americans are reevaluating their subscriptions, with 1 in 4 already canceling one due to budget pressure. Streaming, fitness apps, meal kits, cloud storage, you don't even feel the charges until you add them all up. Subscription creep is very real. Now, what you need to do is review your bank statements once a month or once a quarter. If you haven't used it in 30 days, you probably should cancel it. And if you're not checking your bank statements, well, that leads us right into the next habit, not tracking your spending. You don't need to be an accountant, but if you don't know where your money's going, it's probably disappearing. 74% of Americans say they follow a monthly budget, but 84% admit to going over that budget at least one time. And when they overspend, 44% use a credit card to cover the difference. So yes, people think they're budgeting, but without tracking, that budget is just a guess. Track your spending weekly. Review your transactions and get clear on where all of your money's going. It's not just about judgment, it's about control of the situation. See, money loves attention, and attention builds awareness, and awareness builds power. Because if you don't control your income, you're gonna spend every raise before it even hits your bank account. And that leads us directly into lifestyle creep. Okay, so you get a raise and you upgrade your car. You get a bonus and you book a nicer vacation. You make more and somehow you still feel broke. That's what I like to call lifestyle creep. And here's what's really shocking. 36% of people earning over $200,000 a year still live paycheck to paycheck according to payments. It's not about what you make, it's about what you keep. From January of 2020 to January of 2024, wages rose 21.4%, but personal savings dropped 47.2%. Families struggling to pay their bills? That number jumped from 35.7% in 2022 to 37.8% in 2023 per the CFPB. More money doesn't fix bad habits, it magnifies them. And when your lifestyle inflates faster than your net worth, emergencies become devastating. And that's exactly why the next habit is absolutely non-negotiable. Bankrate says only 46% of Americans have enough in savings to cover 3 months of expenses, and 24% have no emergency fund at all. Think about that for a second. 37% tapped into their savings in the last year, and 80% used it for bills, rent, or medical expenses. Can't cover a $1,000 bill? An emergency fund isn't about luxury, it's about survival. Start small, $500, then $1,000. Automate it. Build the buffer that protects your future. Having no cushion rides shotgun with every other habit on the list. So the next one is about learning how to avoid all of them. We live in the most financially connected era in history, yet most people still can't explain how a credit score works, or what a Roth IRA does, or how compound interest makes or breaks your life. Only 34% of Americans can answer basic financial literacy questions correctly. Most people know more about fantasy football than they do their own finances. The solution? You don't need to be an expert. You just need to care enough to learn. Read books, watch videos, listen to podcasts. The ROI is massive, and it's ultimately free. And the final trap? It's one that convinces people to do nothing at all. I've heard this one too many times. I'll start when I make more. I'm still too young. It's too late for me. Wrong. Time is either your biggest weapon or your biggest excuse. If you're young, you have time. If you're older, you have wisdom. You're not too early. You're not too late. You're just stuck. So listen, if any of these habits hit you in the gut, good. That's awareness. And awareness is the start of freedom. You fix one habit, then you fix 2, then 5. And you'll look back in a year and you'll barely recognize yourself or your bank account. And look, I just want you to know that everything that we just talked about, I've struggled with in my own life. As I've built all the companies that I've built, and I've done all the things that I've done, I've made a lot of the mistakes. I've had bad credit. I've overspent on credit cards. I had no emergency fund at one point. And then I got educated, and then I took action. I became aware, and I did one thing at a time, just like I'm telling you to do, and eventually it added up. And now I have an 820 credit score, no credit card debt, thriving companies, and we're well on our way to financial freedom. So look, if I can do it, you can too. Now do me a huge favor if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel, like the video, and comment down below the first thing that you're gonna do to start taking action. And I'll look forward to seeing you in a future video.